بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, I testify that there is no true God worthy of worship except Allah, and that Muhammad is Allah's true slave and messenger. May Allah's salah and salam be upon the noble Prophet and his household and the companions and those who follow on their path until the day of resurrection. We continue the explanation on the book of Tawheed, which is the beneficial saying on the book of Tawheed, and we are now to start with chapter number 5, and this will be series number 14, or number 14 in our series, as it is on the site. The title of this chapter is الدعاء إلى شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله, the call to testify that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah. And the author began, rahimahullah, by citing a verse in the Quran and some narrations, some ahadith. As to the verse is the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Yusuf, verse 108, chapter 12, verse 108. قال الله تعالى قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة. The organization of the chapters is a real good one, because after the Shaykh rahimahullah mentioned singling Allah alone in worship, meaning for the individual, then he mentioned calling others to Tawheed. So he cited this verse from Surah Yusuf, قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة. Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is my way, I invite unto Allah, to Tawheed, with sure knowledge. Because in fact, لا يتم الإيمان إلا إذا دعا إلى التوحيد. The Iman is not perfected, faith is not perfected unless the person calls for Tawheed. قال الله تعالى, this is evident from Surah Al-Asr, verses 1 till 3. قال الله تعالى in Surah Al-Asr 103 والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. By Al-Asr, by time, verily man is in loss, except those who believe in Tawheed and do righteous good deeds and recommend one another to the truth. And are patient on that. And there is no doubt that the person who takes the path of Tawheed, he does so knowing that it is the best path to follow, and if he is truthful concerning his creed, then he will call others to this. And inviting others or calling others to the testimony of Tawheed, La ilaha illallah, this is from the perfection of Tawheed. So therefore the person believes in this and calls others to. This is the perfection of Tawheed, to believe in it and to call others to the testimony of La ilaha illallah and what it entails. In the verse, قال الله تعالى قل هذه سبيلي, this is my way. Ad'u ila Allah, I invite others, I call others to Allah. And inviting others, or ad-da'wa ila Allah, calling to Allah, can be divided into two types. In terms of the caller, the caller could be, number one, a caller to Allah, or a caller to other than Allah. The one who calls to Allah is the sincere one, who wants to bring people to tread the path that leads them to Allah. And the one who calls to other than Allah, he may be calling others to himself, meaning he calls to the truth so that he becomes magnified and venerated between the people or amongst the people and is respected. And that's why you find him getting angry if people don't execute what he commands them. And the opposite, he does not feel so if they commit what is forbidden, and even may not call them to abstain from that. And also a person could be calling to his leader, as it is the case in many of the countries where you find the scholars of misguidance. They are scholars of state, not scholars of deen. They call to their leaders. And from that is one remembers when socialism began to appear in some of the Arabic countries. Some of those scholars of misguidance tried to find excuses, and therefore they tried to check for evidences and so forth in the Quranic text and in the Hadith to find substantiation for socialism. So such people were calling others to other than Allah. And the one who calls to Allah and sees people fleeing away from that, then he should not despair and abandon the da'wah. In fact, the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told Ali bin Abi Talib, انفذ على رسلك فوالله لأن يهدي الله بك رجلا واحدا خير لك من حمر النعم. Advance in ease and gentleness until you arrive in their midst. This is referring when the Prophet ﷺ sent him to the Jews. Until you arrive in their midst, then call them to Islam. By Allah, if He, Allah, may guide through you a single man to Islam, then it is better for you than red camels. And red camels were the most precious thing to have then. So if he calls to Allah and there is no response, let his anger be for the reason that the truth was not followed, not for the reason that he himself was not, people did not respond to him in himself. So if he gets angry for the fact that the truth was not followed, then in this case he is calling people to Allah. And if even one responds, then that is sufficient. And if there is even no one responding, then in this case he freed himself from the responsibility. And we know in the hadith that on the day of resurrection, the Prophet ﷺ said, وَالنَّبِيُّ وَلَيْسَ مَعَهُ أَحَدٌ, and the Prophet will come having no followers with him. Also, one should know that sufficient in the da'wah to the truth, in the call to the truth, is the fact it is a call to the truth and a warning against evil and falsehood. Why? So that the truth becomes apparent to the people and known that this is truth and that is falsehood. Because if people are silent concerning the truth and clarifying it, and the batil is will become manifest and entrenched with the passage of time. And even with the passage of time, the truth may change into falsehood, and falsehood to truth. Then, in this verse from Surah Yusuf, which the author cited, rahimahullah, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ, I invite others to Allah على بصيرة, on knowledge. So therefore, this da'wah now involves the following: sincerity and ilm and knowledge. Because what corrupts the da'wah most is lack of sincerity or lack of knowledge. And what is intended by knowledge here? It doesn't mean knowledge in the Sharia only. Rather, it means, number one, the knowledge in Sharia and the knowledge of the condition of the person being invited to Allah, al-mad'u, the one who is called. And then thirdly, al-ilmu bis-sabil, knowing the way that brings forth, the proper way that brings forth what is intended. And this is the hikmah. This is what's meant by the hikmah, the wisdom. So therefore the person should know, should have knowledge in Sharia, in the Shar', and in the condition of the one being called, and in the way to bring forth and deliver this da'wah. And this refers to the hikmah, to the wisdom, to the manner. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, in the hadith which the author now will cite, the hadith of Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, when he mentioned, Ibn Abbas, that the Messenger ﷺ, when he sent Mu'adh to Al-Yaman, he told him, إِنَّكَ تَأْتِي قَوْمًا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ, you will come upon the people of the book. The people of the book. That's why here, this is directing Mu'adh, and it reflects the knowledge of the Prophet ﷺ concerning the people and of their conditions. That's why he told him, you come to people of the book. So, these three conditions constitute the sure knowledge meant in this verse. And having the al-mad'u, the one who is called, This is not mentioned in the Shara. This is not part of the Shara. It is not part of the knowledge in Sharia, meaning the one who is called, his condition. It really means that such and such person, his condition may require that I deal with him in gentleness. And another person, it may be the opposite. Also, this person I am inviting or calling, he may respond to me by raising some doubts, shubuhat. So all these matters are extra to the knowledge in Sharia, as you can tell. These are extra to the knowledge in Sharia. Similarly, knowing the way which will have a good impact in terms of the da'wah, the hikmah, like for example, using ways of incitement, tashji', or ways of inclining the heart. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, in the Battle of Hunayn, he gave those who have been inclined towards Islam, he gave them 100 camels. This is from hikmah. Also in the battlefield, he incited the people to fight and encouraged them on this by telling them, "Man qatala qatilan falahu salbu." Whoever produces a proof that he has killed one of the kafirs, then he will have the spoils of that killed person. This is in the incitement in the battlefield. And all of this is from the hikmah, from the wisdom in terms of da'wah. Therefore, the ignorant is not fit to give da'wah. Al-jahil la yaslihu lid-da'wah. And it's not praiseworthy at all that he conducts da'wah. And his way is not the way of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the ignorant corrupts more than he may bring good or may correct. And this is a matter which is taken lightly by many people, unfortunately. And I say this as evident in these platforms of da'wah which we see here on this facility or this means which is called Pal Talk. You have people leading rooms and themselves need to learn before they do that. There are people who are accepting Islam and you see them taking stage in talking about everything concerning Islam and Christianity and you name it. And they didn't grow yet in Islam. And this is just amazing. And that's why they can corrupt more than they can benefit. And produce mischief about the verses in the Quran and or the Hadith. And misquote. Yesterday someone was talking to a woman, inviting her to Islam. And the most important thing that he was trying to tell her is that we should not ascribe partners, associate anything with Allah in the creation. And this tells that the person does not really know that the pagans and most of mankind don't do that. They associate partners with Allah in worship. This is just one example, but others are even more painful. Even although this is a matter in terms of Tawheed, but you see others also talking about anything but Tawheed. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse says, أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي, me and those who follow me on sure knowledge, meaning I invite to Allah and those who follow me invite to Allah, and both are on sure knowledge. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ, meaning I declare tasbih, glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above any imperfection, that I call to Allah without sure knowledge. That's why He brought the tasbih here. Because the tasbih, subhanallah, means I declare that Allah is far removed from every imperfection and or defect. And that's why He mentioned it here. Meaning, subhanallah, lest I be of those who invite others to Allah without sure knowledge. Then he cited the hadith of Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he sent Mu'adh to Yemen, Allah's Messenger sent him as a teacher and a judge and a caller. A teacher and a judge and a caller. He sent him in the second he sent him in the month of Rabi' al-Awwal, in the 10th year after Hijrah, which is the second Islamic month of the 10th year after Hijrah. This is the famous date, or the known date. He sent him with another companion, a great companion, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. May Allah be pleased with both of them. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent Mu'adh to the city of Sana'a and its surroundings. Sana'a is the current capital of Yemen. And he sent Abu Musa to the city of Aden in the south and its surroundings. And when he sent them, he admonished them, telling them, اجتمعا وتطاوعا ولا تفترقا ويسرا ولا تعسرا وبشرا ولا تنفرا. Facilitate things for the people and don't make things difficult for them. Be kind and lenient, both of you, with the people, and don't be hard on them, and give the glad tidings to the people and don't repulse them. So he told Mu'adh, and he told him إنك تأتي قوما من أهل الكتاب. You are coming to people who are people of the book. This is another direction, and this indicates that the Prophet ﷺ knows of the condition of the people, and his knowledge comes from, number one, the revelation, al-wahi, and then knowledge and experience. And as to the people of the book, what's intended is the people who received the Torah and the Injil, whose messengers Musa and Isa respectively, may Allah's Saleh As-Saleh be upon both of them. And this therefore refers to the Jews and the Christians. And they were there, the majority of the people in Yemen then, although they were mushriks as well in the Yemen, but the people of the book, were the majority. And that's why he chose to refer to them, because they were the majority, and that's why he said people of the book. And the Prophet ﷺ told him this for two reasons. Number one, so that he is aware of their condition, as to whom he is calling, and that secondly, that he should be prepared, because they are from the people of the book and they have knowledge. Then he told him, فَلْيَكُنْ أَوَّلْ مَا تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَيْهِ. Then the first thing you should invite them to, شَهَادَةُ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, the testimony of Tawheed, La ilaha illallah, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah. شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله, to bear witness. And here it means knowledge and utterance by the tongue. Why? Because the witness, the one who witnessed, informs based upon knowledge, and when he informs, he must utter. But this type of witnessing here is not mere information. Rather, it requires knowledge and information and acceptance and attestation and yielding. Because if the person believes in his heart and does not utter by his tongue, La ilaha illallah, then, as Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, that he is not a Muslim by consensus until he utters that. Because the term ashhadu indicates ikhbar, information, and the information implicit in that is the utterance. Then it's inevitable that the person utters. The niyyah, the intention alone, is not sufficient and does not avail him with Allah until he utters that. And the Prophet ﷺ, we know he told his uncle, قُل, utter, say. He told his uncle Abu Talib, قُل, La ilaha illallah, say, La ilaha illallah. And he didn't tell him, اعتقد, believe that La ilaha illallah. And what does it mean, La ilaha? Meaning, none is worthy of worship. Ilah, meaning ma'luh, the one who is worshipped. And it is not like what the scholastic or the people of scholastic rhetoric claim, that the ilah means the one who is able to innovate and create. This is false. Otherwise, the mushriks, whom the Prophet ﷺ stood up to invite them to Tawheed and then fought them then. Otherwise, they would be muwahhideen, people of Tawheed, because they attest to the fact that Allah is the Creator, as we read in Surah Al-Zukhruf 43, verse 87. وَلَئِنْ سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَهُمْ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ. And if you ask them who created them, they will surely say Allah. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in several places the same thing as in Surah Al-Zumar 39-38. قال الله تعالى ولئن سألتهم من خلق السماوات والأرض ليقولن الله. And verily, if you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, surely they will say Allah has created them. Now, if someone says, when we say that لا معبود إلا الله, there is none worship except Allah, but we know that the mushriks worship their statues and their images and their idols. So they do worship. The answer is they worship, but unrightfully. Although they may call them gods, aliha, rather the divinity of these so-called gods is futile, not deserving worship. And that's why they know that themselves. If they were touched by any calamity, they will resort to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely. And thus therefore it cannot be called aliha truly. They worship them, and they even claim that they worship them only to draw them to draw them nearer to Allah. So they took these as means of nearness. And therefore now we can understand from this explanation, we can understand the following verse in Surah Al-A'raf in chapter 7, verse 59. The messengers telling their respective nations, اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره. There you go. Worship Allah, you have no other ilah but Him. Ilah, you have no other ilah, meaning you have no other true ilah, although they may call them gods, but they don't deserve to be worshipped. And in the saying La ilaha illallah is a negation of ascribing divinity to other than Allah and affirming it to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why it came in this context, which is in the Arabic grammar known as hasr, which means restrictive context. La ilaha, there is no God except, no true God except Allah. So in this chapter now we have covered the two evidences on the call to La ilaha illallah. The first verse from Surah Yusuf 12:108, and this is a very important verse to the callers to Allah, for the callers of Allah to contemplate upon. And then the second was the hadith, the great hadith of Mu'ad, and sending the companions to Al-Yemen for da'wah, giving the highest priority to Tawheed, La ilaha illallah. Then the author afterwards will cite the evidence of sending Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu in da'wah. And the merits of da'wah. And that we will talk about inshallah ta'ala tomorrow. So this brings forth the end of this part number 14 in this explanation on the book of Tawheed. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.